I've been in plenty of fights before, inside the ring, outside of it, and sometimes just for fun. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment a drunk, heartbroken doctor slid into my lap like he belonged there. It started like any other night. The bar was dimly lit, filled with a low hum of conversation and the occasional burst of laughter. I was nursing a beer, half listening to a friend ramble about a fight schedule, when a man stumbled into my personal space. Not just any man. Derek Lee. I'd seen him around before. Mr. Perfect in a lab coat, always serious, always professional. The kind of guy who probably color-coded his sock drawer and had never been late to work a day in his life. Tonight? Not so much. His tie was loose, the top buttons of his dress shirt undone, exposing the sharp line of his collarbone. His usually neat black hair was slightly disheveled, and those dark eyes, which I'd only ever seen filled with detached professionalism, were glazed over with something else entirely. Desperation. He didn't just sit next to me. He practically draped himself over my side, one hand gripping my shoulder as he leaned in close, his breath warm against my neck. "You're hot," he slurred, blinking up at me like I was the best thing he'd seen all night. I lifted an eyebrow, smirking. "And you're drunk." "Maybe." His fingers brushed down my arm before curling around my wrist. "But I know what I want." I should have shut it down. I wasn't the type to take advantage of a guy who'd clearly had one too many. But then his lips grazed the shell of my ear, completely unprompted, and something inside me snapped. This wasn't the same man I'd exchanged polite nods with at the gym or passed by in the hospital hallways. This Derek was reckless, needy, and hell-bent on getting my attention. "What's got you in this state, Doc?" I asked, catching his chin between my fingers and forcing him to meet my gaze. He let out a short, humorless laugh. "My ex just went public with his new boyfriend. Online. For everyone to see. Guess I was never worth an announcement." "Oh, so that was it." "His loss," I said easily. "But if you're looking to make him jealous, I'm not your guy." Derek shook his head. "Not jealous. His fingers curled against my chest, gripping my shirt. "I don't want to think tonight. Can you help me with that?" Damn, I wasn't a saint, and I sure as hell wasn't one to turn down a man who knew what he wanted. Especially not when he looked at me like that, his lips parted, his body pressing subtly against mine. "You sure about this?" I murmured, brushing a thumb over his cheek. He didn't hesitate. "Yes." And that was all I needed. I grabbed his hand, leading him out of the bar, fully aware that come morning, Dr. Derek Lee would probably regret every second of what was about to happen. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, he was mine. Heat. Pressure. The kind of desperation that left no room for hesitation. Derek was fire beneath me, his body arching, his nails digging into my back as he gasped my name. I had him pinned against the mattress, the dim glow of the city lights seeping through the window, painting his flushed skin in streaks of gold and shadow. His breath hitched, his legs tightening around me as I moved, slow and deep, savoring every tremor that ran through him. "Jeremy," he choked out, his voice wrecked, pleading. I leaned down, pressing my lips against his, swallowing the rest of his words. His fingers tangled in my hair, tugging, demanding more, and I gave it to him, again and again, until his gasps turned to moans and his body trembled from the aftershocks. Derek Lee, always composed, always in control, was completely undone beneath me. And I had never seen anything more beautiful. The morning after should have been perfect. The sheets were warm, the air still thick with the scent of sweat and sex. Derek was sprawled beside me, half buried in the blankets, his dark lashes fluttering as he stirred. A satisfied smirk curled on my lips. Maybe I'd get around two before breakfast. And then it happened. His eyes snapped open. He stared at the ceiling for a long, horrifying second. Then, like a man realizing he'd woken up in a crime scene, he bolted upright, clutching the sheets to his chest. "Oh my God," he croaked. No. I propped myself up on my elbow, amused. I'd go with yes after last night. Derek's head whipped around so fast I was surprised he didn't get whiplash. "Jeremy." "Morning, Doc." I dragged a hand through my hair, letting the blanket slip just enough to remind him exactly what we'd been up to. "Sleep well." His face went up in flames. "This didn't happen." I arched a brow. "Oh, it definitely happened. Several times, actually." Derek groaned, dropping his head into his hands. "I was drunk." You were also very enthusiastic. I can't believe this. He scrambled out of bed, the sheet wrapped around his waist like some kind of makeshift toga. He looked around wildly, muttering curses under his breath as he tried to locate his scattered clothes. I have to go. I need to. Oh God, my job. I stretched, enjoying the view of a very flustered, very naked Derek Lee panicking in my bedroom. Relax. No one's going to know unless you walk into the hospital wearing yesterday's clothes with "I got thoroughly fucked" written on your face. He shot me a glare so sharp it could have cut glass. You are not helping. I grinned. I wasn't trying to. After a few more rounds of frantic dressing and self-loathing monologues, Derek finally managed to locate his pants. He was halfway to the door before he hesitated. For a second, I thought he might turn around, say something. Maybe admit that last night hadn't just been about his ex or drowning his sorrows. That maybe, just maybe, he had wanted me just as much as I'd wanted him. But then he let out a breath, squared his shoulders, and walked out without looking back. I watched the door click shut behind him, running my tongue over my teeth. Interesting. Derek probably thought he could escape last night's choices by pretending it never happened. Unfortunately for him, fate, or rather, my very specific set of connections, had other plans. I was leaning against the counter at the hospital cafe, sipping on a terrible cup of coffee, when I saw him. Derek Lee, back in his crisp white coat, back in his perfect professional role, back to pretending he didn't let me wreck him less than 24 hours ago. Too bad for him. I wasn't the kind of guy who let things slide so easily. I pushed off the counter, sauntering toward him like I had all the time in the world. Morning, Doc. You look well rested. Derek nearly choked on his own coffee. What the hell are you doing here? I smirked. What? No good morning. No, Jeremy, it's great to see you. I'm hurt. You shouldn't be here. I took another sip of my coffee, completely unfazed. Relax. I'm not here to cause trouble. I've got a checkup today. His brows furrowed. With who? Dr. Carter. Nice guy, but nowhere near as fun as you. Derek exhaled sharply, pinching the bridge of his nose like I was personally responsible for his rising blood pressure. Which, to be fair, I probably was. Before he could fire back with some excuse to get rid of me, someone called his name from behind. Dr. Lee, you're needed in room 204. Derek turned, and his entire body went rigid. I glanced between him and the man standing there, clipboard in hand. The moment stretched uncomfortably long, and Derek's normally composed expression faltered for just a second, his shoulders tensing, his grip tightening around his coffee cup. And that's when it clicked. Whoever this guy was, he wasn't just a coworker. He was someone important. Someone who had the power to shake Derek up in a way few people could. I took another slow sip, watching him with amusement. Well, that was interesting. Derek shot me a warning glare, but before he could say anything, his ex, tall, polished, and radiating "I have my life together" energy, approached. Dr. Lee, Dr. Carter needs you in a consult after this. His tone was polite, professional, but the tension crackling in the air was anything but. Derek cleared his throat. Got it. I'll be there. His ex barely spared me a glance before walking off, leaving us in awkward silence. I tilted my head. So, you gonna introduce me? Derek exhaled sharply. Jeremy. I grinned. What? I'm just curious. He seemed friendly. He's not. Derek cut himself off, rubbing his temple. It's complicated. I leaned in, lowering my voice. You know, for someone who tried to run out on me this morning, you sure have a lot of drama going on. His eyes snapped to mine, irritation warring with something else, something that looked dangerously close to panic. Jeremy, I swear. Before he could finish, another voice cut in. Dr. Lee, there's an issue with a patient on the 3rd floor. Derek turned toward the nurse, looking relieved for the escape. I'm on my way. I watched as he hurried off, ex-boyfriend and work stress piling on top of last night's mess. I should have let it go. I really should have. But where's the fun in that? Hospitals were breeding grounds for gossip. I wasn't particularly surprised when I overheard Derek's co-workers chatting about him in the break room, voices dripping with curiosity. He's been acting weird lately. Yeah, like he's hiding something. Maybe it's a girl? Or, oh, what if it's a guy? I smirked, leaning against the doorway. Poor Derek. He was always so put together, but right now, I could practically hear his brain short-circuiting. Then, out of nowhere, Derek's voice cut in. Well, I'm seeing someone. Silence. Then, excitement. Wait, really? Who? Derek froze. His mouth opened, then shut again. Panic flashed across his face. Perfect timing. I stepped inside just as the questioning intensified. Oh, babe, you should have told me you were introducing me to your coworkers today, I said smoothly, draping an arm over his shoulder. I would have worn something more appropriate. Derek stiffened under my touch. Jeremy. One of his coworkers perked up. Wait, as in Jeremy Green. I flashed them a winning smile. The one and only. Derek looked like he wanted to crawl under the nearest hospital bed, but his coworkers? They were thrilled. How long have you two been dating? Someone asked. Not long, but it feels like forever, doesn't it, babe? I gave Derek's shoulder a squeeze, watching him flinch slightly. We just click. Derek made a noise, somewhere between a groan and a sigh of despair. His coworkers, completely oblivious to his suffering, started gushing about how they never would have guessed and how cute we were together. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice so only Derek could hear. You're welcome, by the way. His glare could have melted steel. But honestly, this was just getting fun. The moment we stepped out of the break room, Derek spun to face me, eyes burning with frustration. What the hell was that? I shrugged. You panicked. I helped. By making it worse. Now I have to pretend we're actually dating. And I smirked. We fake it, they buy it, and you get to keep your reputation intact. Win-win. Derek groaned, rubbing his temples. Fine, but we need rules. I leaned in, amused. Oh, let's hear them. 1. No unnecessary touching. Define unnecessary. I wiggled my eyebrows. Because I think that arm over your shoulder was very necessary. His glare could have set me on fire. 2. Keep flirting to a minimum. Flirting is the key to selling this. Subtle flirting, then. I rolled my eyes. Fine. What else? Derek hesitated, then exhaled sharply. 3. No catching feelings. This is fake. I held up my hands. Obviously, his expression remained firm. I mean it, Jeremy. Sure. Strictly business. But the moment we stepped back into public view, I couldn't resist. As a nurse walked past, I laced my fingers through Derek's and tugged him closer. Smile, babe. Derek stiffened, but forced a strained smile. You're insufferable. And yet, incredibly convincing. I winked, watching his ears turn red. What was supposed to be a simple charade was quickly spiraling. The more I pushed his buttons, the more real it looked. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't all an act. If I was going to be Derek's fake boyfriend, I might as well enjoy it. And if that meant teasing him just to watch him squirm, even better. Derek, babe, you forgot your coffee. I slid the cup into his hand, making sure my fingers brushed against his, lingering just long enough to send a spark between us. He stiffened, his knuckles white around the cup, before forcing a smile. We were standing in the hospital lounge, and I could feel the eyes of his coworkers on us, soaking in every little detail. You didn't have to, but I wanted to. I cut him off smoothly, dropping my voice just enough for the others to catch the affectionate tone. Anything for my boyfriend. His grip on the coffee tightened. His eyes darted around, looking for an escape. I bit back a smirk. This was too easy. At first, it was all fun and games. But as we spent more time together, late-night dinners, whispered conversations, inside jokes that weren't supposed to feel as real as they did, the line between pretense and reality blurred. The stolen glances lasted too long. The casual touches ignited something deeper. And when Derek's ex started noticing, I could see the tension coiling tighter in his shoulders, his body practically vibrating with unresolved emotions. And then, everything exploded. That night, he came over under the excuse of going over details to keep our story straight. But there was nothing neat about the way he paced in my living room. Frustration and something darker flickering behind his eyes. This is getting out of hand, he muttered. I don't even know what's real anymore. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching him unravel. Then stopped thinking so damn much. He turned to me, breath unsteady, and suddenly, we were too close. The air crackled between us, heavy, charged, as if gravity itself was pulling us together. And then he kissed me. Not just any kiss. This was desperate, messy, raw. He clung to me like I was the only thing keeping him grounded, his hands gripping my shirt, pulling me closer. A low, needy sound escaped him as I deepened the kiss, pressing him back against the counter, feeling the way his body melted against mine. The hunger in his touch told me everything. This wasn't pretend anymore. By the time we pulled apart, Derek looked wrecked, his lips kiss-swollen, his chest rising and falling in sharp, uneven breaths. He swallowed hard, his fingers still curled around my collar. This doesn't change anything. I traced a thumb over his lower lip, my voice rough with amusement. Sure, but we both knew that was a lie. I kissed him again, slower this time, savoring the way he responded to my touch. His body tensed, then melted against me as I lifted him onto the counter, sliding between his legs. My hands explored, memorizing the heat of his skin beneath his shirt, the way he gasped when my lips trailed down his jaw. Derek let out a shaky breath. Jeremy, shoo, I murmured, pressing my lips to the pulse at his throat. Just stop thinking. And for once, he did. We didn't stop. Not until the heat between us boiled over, consuming every doubt, every hesitation, leaving nothing but tangled limbs and breathless whispers in its wake. I wasn't blind. I saw the way Derek's expression shuddered every time his ex was around, the way his fingers twitched like he was resisting the urge to clench them into fists. The guy had a way of slithering into conversations with fake concern, all soft smiles and calculated words. It made my skin crawl. Derek, you look tired. Are you taking care of yourself? The ex, Ethan, tilted his head, voice smooth as honey. You know you can always talk to me. Derek's jaw tightened. His grip on the clipboard in his hands turned his knuckles white, but his lips curled into a polite, distant smile. I'm fine. Fine. Right. If fine meant looking like he was about to shatter at any second. Ethan's eyes flicked to me, assessing. I didn't like it. Jeremy, you must be quite the support for him. I hope you're taking good care of my Derek. My Derek. The word sat wrong in my chest. I slung an arm around Derek's shoulders, casual but firm. Oh, don't worry. I take excellent care of him. Derek tensed under my touch, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he let out a short, forced laugh, like he was barely holding himself together. Ethan didn't push further, but the damage was already done. As soon as he left, Derek exhaled sharply and shook off my arm, pacing toward the nearest break room. I followed, closing the door behind us. You want to tell me what that was about? It was nothing. Derek, I crossed my arms. That wasn't nothing. You looked like you were about to be sick. He let out a humorless laugh, running a hand through his hair. He does this. Acts like he cares. Like he ever gave a damn when we were together. There it was. The bitterness, the pain still raw beneath the surface. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You know he's full of shit, right? Derek's throat bobbed as he swallowed. It's not just him. It's me. I was stupid enough to believe in something real before, and look how that turned out. My chest tightened. So what? You're just never gonna trust anyone again. He let out a slow breath, shoulders sagging. I don't know if I can. I should have left it at that. Should have let him have his space. But something about seeing Derek, cocky, confident Derek, look so lost made my pulse thrum unsteadily. So I did something reckless. I touched his chin, tilting his face toward me. I'm not him. His lips parted, eyes searching mine. I know. The air between us felt heavy, charged with something we weren't ready to name. Then, as if snapping back to reality, Derek took a step back, shaking his head. This, whatever this is, it's not real. We're just pretending. My jaw tightened. Yeah, just pretending. Then why did it feel more real than anything else? A couple days later, Derek stood at my doorstep, his expression shadowed with hesitation, his hands clenched at his sides. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, the weight of everything we had pretended not to feel pressing down on us. His knuckles hovered near the doorframe like he hadn't even realized he knocked. His shirt was slightly rumpled, his hair a mess, like he had been running his hands through it over and over. And his eyes, God, his eyes, burned with something raw, something desperate. I can't. His voice was raw, unsteady. I can't keep pretending this doesn't mean anything. Something inside me tightened. I wasn't sure what I had expected him to say, but hearing it out loud sent a rush of heat through my chest. Then don't, I said simply, stepping closer. No more pretending. No more rules. Just say what you really want. His breath hitched, his fingers twitching at his sides like he wanted to reach for me, but couldn't quite convince himself to take that final step. I don't know how to do this, Jeremy. I don't know if I can. I let out a breath, reaching for his hand, lacing our fingers together. Then we figure it out together. No pressure, no expectations, just us. Derek's grip tightened like he was afraid to let go. I care about you. More than I should, more than I ever planned to. And it scares the hell out of me. I swallowed hard. He wasn't alone in that feeling. I had spent weeks brushing off the way he made me feel, convincing myself it was just part of the game. But it wasn't. Somewhere between teasing him for fun and touching him like I couldn't help myself, I had stopped playing. A small, wry smile tugged at my lips. Yeah, well, join the club. He let out a breathy, nervous laugh, and something in his expression shifted, like the last wall between us had finally crumbled. And then he was kissing me. Hard, desperate, like he had been holding back for too long and couldn't anymore. I pressed him against the doorframe, my hands sliding under his shirt, feeling the heat of his skin against my palms. He arched into me, gasping against my lips as his fingers tangled in my hair, pulling me even closer. This time, there was no hesitation. No doubt. Just the two of us, giving in completely. We barely made it inside before clothes started hitting the floor, before whispered confessions were swallowed between fevered kisses. He pressed me against the nearest wall, his mouth hot and needy against my skin, his hands exploring like he was trying to memorize every inch of me. Jeremy. My name was a breathless plea against my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. I grabbed his chin, forcing his gaze to meet mine. No more running, I murmured. We're doing this. Derek nodded, eyes dark and full of something deeper than lust. Yeah, we are. And then we lost ourselves in each other. By the time we finally pulled apart, Derek's forehead was resting against mine, his breath warm against my lips. His fingers traced idle patterns against my bare shoulder, his body still pressed close like he was afraid to let go. This is real, isn't it? His voice was barely above a whisper. I nodded, brushing my thumb over his cheek. Yeah, it is. He exhaled shakily, then kissed me again, slower this time, deeper, like he was sealing a promise neither of us were willing to break. And just like that, the last of our rules disappeared. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the tangled sheets. Derek was still curled up against me, his bare skin pressed to mine, his slow, even breaths ghosting over my chest. I traced a lazy pattern down his spine, letting my fingers memorize the way his body fit so perfectly against mine. Last night had been something else. I smirked at the thought. Who knew that under all that nervous hesitation, Derek had such a desperate, uninhibited side? It was intoxicating, watching him finally give in, seeing the way he trembled beneath me, the way he moaned my name like he needed me more than his next breath. And now here he was, his body still slack with sleep, a peaceful expression smoothing out the usual furrow in his brows. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I ignored it. What time is it? Derek's voice was husky, rough from sleep. He shifted, his fingers brushing against my stomach as he stretched. Too early for you to start overthinking again, I murmured, pressing a kiss to his temple. He groaned, burying his face into my chest. I wasn't. I arched a brow. Want to try that again with a little more conviction? Derek sighed but didn't pull away. This is new, and I don't want to mess it up. I tightened my hold on him. Then don't. We take it one step at a time, all right? No more rules, no more pretending. Just us. His fingers curled against my skin, gripping me like he was afraid I'd slip away. Okay. A loud knock on my apartment door shattered the moment. I frowned, reluctantly untangling myself from Derek and pulling on some sweatpants before heading over. Opening the door, I found my trainer, Marcus, standing there with his arms crossed. You missed morning drills. Shit. I'd completely forgotten. Marcus's eyes flicked over my shoulder, where Derek, still wrapped in the sheets, was sitting up in bed, blinking sleepily at us. A knowing smirk curled over Marcus's lips. So that's why. I rolled my eyes. What do you want? Your next fight's been announced. Big match. If you're serious about defending your title, you need to get your head back in the game. I glanced back at Derek. His expression was unreadable, but I could see the way his fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. I sighed. Yeah, I'll be there. Marcus nodded and clapped me on the shoulder before leaving. As I shut the door, I turned back to Derek, gauging his reaction. So, you're really a big deal, huh? He asked, a teasing lilt to his voice, but something deeper lurked beneath it. You're only realizing that now? I smirked. walking back over and tugging him down onto the mattress with me. Guess I'll have to remind you just how good I am at what I do. Derek let out a breathless laugh, his hands bracing against my chest. Jeremy. Shoo. I silenced him with a kiss, already determined to make up for lost time. The weeks leading up to the fight were a blur of intense training, late-night talks, and stolen moments with Derek. He still hesitated sometimes, like he was waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I wasn't going anywhere. And little by little, I could see him starting to believe that. The night before the fight, Derek sat on the edge of my bed, watching as I wrapped my hands with tape. You nervous? I grinned. Never. He huffed, shaking his head. Liar. I shrugged. Fine. Maybe a little. But I know I'll win. And I know you'll be there watching. That's all that matters. Derek hesitated before reaching for my hands, fingers tracing over the tape. Be careful, all right? I leaned in, pressing my forehead to his. Always. The next night, the arena was packed. The roar of the crowd was deafening, the adrenaline buzzing through my veins as I stepped into the ring. My opponent was strong, fast, but I was better. And when my hand was finally raised in victory, the first thing I did was search for Derek in the crowd. He was there, waiting for me, eyes shining with something I finally recognized for what it was. Love. I pulled him into my arms, ignoring the cameras, the flashing lights, the chants of my name. None of it mattered. Only him. Told you I'd win. I murmured against his lips. Derek smiled, breathless. Yeah, you did. And then, right there, under the blinding lights, with the whole world watching, we kissed.